I seriously never thought one tiny little lie would blow up my entire life. But here I am, Megan, 29 years old and 8 months pregnant, watching my husband pack up his stuff to move into our spare bedroom, all because I didn't mention that this guy Tyler used to be more than just a friend years ago. Like years before I even met my husband. I mean, come on, who cares about ancient history? Jason and I had been together for almost 2 years now. We met through mutual friends at a housewarming party and hit it off immediately. He's 32, works as a project manager for a construction company, while I do admin work at a dental office. Nothing fancy, but we were comfortable. We moved in together after 8 months, got married 4 months after that, and decided to try for a baby pretty quickly. Everything was going perfectly according to plan. I got pregnant within 3 months of trying, and we were both over the moon about it. I've always had guy friends, and Jason has female friends, too. That was never an issue between us. He's not the jealous type, and neither am I. At least that's what I thought until this whole mess started about 6 months ago. I invited Tyler over for dinner one evening. Tyler and I have known each other for years, stayed friends after we broke up, and honestly, it wasn't even a serious relationship. We dated for like 4 months about 3.5 years ago. It was nothing. When Tyler came over, everything seemed fine. We had dinner, caught up on old times, and laughed about mutual friends. Jason was quiet during dinner, but I figured he was just tired from work. After Tyler left, Jason looked at me with this weird expression and just straight up asked, "Did you and Tyler ever date?" I don't know why, but I panicked and said, "No." I told him we were just old friends from college. The lie just popped out before I could think it through. I didn't see the big deal. Why mention something that happened forever ago and meant nothing between us? I just didn't want to deal with any drama or questions. It felt simpler to keep it clean. We're just friends now, so that's all that matters, right? Jason seemed satisfied with my answer, but there was something in his eyes that didn't sit right, like he knew I wasn't being completely honest. The next week was normal, but then I noticed Jason checking my phone when I left it on the counter. He never did that before. He started asking more questions about Tyler, about our friendship, how we met, stuff like that. I kept sticking to my story. We were just college friends. Nothing more. The more he asked, the more annoyed I got. I mean, I was 4 months pregnant at that point. Shouldn't he be focusing on that instead of some non-issue from my past? Then one night, about a week after Tyler's visit, Jason brought it up again while we were getting ready for bed. "Are you absolutely sure there was never anything between you and Tyler? Because something doesn't feel right." I remember feeling my heart racing, but I doubled down. "No, babe. We're just friends. Why are you so hung up on this?" I even managed to turn it around on him, suggesting maybe he was the one with trust issues. I knew deep down I should probably just come clean, but at that point, admitting I lied would make it seem like a bigger deal than it was. What I didn't realize then was how quickly things would fall apart from that moment. Jason nodded and said, "Okay," but his body language said something completely different. That night, he slept on the very edge of his side of the bed, not touching me at all. I told myself he was just being dramatic and he'd get over it, but honestly, that was the beginning of the end, and I was too stubborn to see it. I never thought hiding something so small could create such a massive rift between us. If I had known how things would spiral from there, maybe I would have just told the truth. Or maybe not, because in my mind, it still doesn't justify what's happening now. People have secrets and white lies in relationships all the time. How was I supposed to know this particular one would be the thing that broke us? The next few weeks were weird. Jason started staying late at work, which he never did before. When he was home, he'd barely talk to me. He'd ask about the baby and how I was feeling, but that was it. No more random hugs from behind while I was cooking or little kisses when he walked through the door. It was like living with a polite roommate instead of my husband. Meanwhile, my belly was getting bigger and my hormones were all over the place. I was supposed to be enjoying this special time, not stressing about why my husband was suddenly acting like a stranger. I tried bringing it up one night. "Is something wrong? You've been really distant lately." He just stared at me for a long moment before saying, I can't shake the feeling that you're not being honest with me about Tyler. I immediately got defensive. Oh my God. Are you still on that? I told you we're just friends. Why would I lie about something so stupid? In my head, I was screaming, just drop it already. But the look on his face, I'll never forget it. It was like he was seeing me for the first time and he didn't like what he saw. After that, things got even worse. Jason started sleeping on the couch some nights, claiming my pregnancy snoring was keeping him up. Maybe that was true, but I knew better. By the time I hit 6 months pregnant, we were barely speaking unless it was about doctor appointments or baby stuff. We still went to my prenatal visits together, but the joy was gone. Instead of excitedly talking about the ultrasound pictures in the car ride home, we'd sit in silence. My girlfriends noticed something was off. When Amanda asked what was going on with Jason at our girls' lunch, I brushed it off. He's just stressed about becoming a dad. It's normal. But inside, I was starting to panic. What if he left me? What if I had to do this all alone? All because of one little lie that honestly shouldn't even matter. I started having nightmares about giving birth alone. I'd wake up in tears, and Jason wouldn't even roll over to comfort me anymore. When I reached for him in bed, he'd scoot further away. I was carrying his child, and he couldn't even bring himself to hold me. The rejection hurt more than I wanted to admit. Then came the third time he asked about Tyler. We were setting up the nursery, and Jason found an old photo that had fallen out of a book. It showed a group of us at a beach party, and Tyler had his arm around my waist. Nothing scandalous, but definitely not just friends body language. Megan, I'm asking you one more time. What was your relationship with Tyler? His voice was so calm, but his eyes were desperate, almost begging me to just tell the truth. But I was in too deep. We were close friends, that's all. People take pictures like that all the time. I snatched the photo away and shoved it in a drawer. Why are you so obsessed with this? I'm carrying your baby, and all you care about is some stupid friendship from before I even knew you. That night, Jason moved his pillow and blanket to the guest room. He didn't even bother with the couch anymore. I was 7.5 months pregnant, and my husband couldn't stand to sleep in the same bed as me. I cried myself to sleep, one hand on my belly where our baby was kicking, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. The worst part, a tiny voice in my head kept whispering that I could fix this anytime by just telling the truth. But my pride wouldn't let me. After all, if he was going to blow up our marriage over something this small, maybe we weren't meant to be together anyway. At least that's what I told myself to make it through each day. It all came crashing down at Amanda's birthday dinner. We were at this nice restaurant downtown. Me, Jason, Amanda, her boyfriend, T, and a few other friends. I was huge by then, uncomfortable in the booth, and irritated that Jason had insisted on driving separately in case you get tired and want to leave early, like he was doing me a favor instead of avoiding being alone with me. Tyler's name came up in conversation. Someone mentioned running into him at the gym. I felt Jason tense beside me, but kept my face neutral. Then Amanda, my supposed best friend, had too much wine and started reminiscing. Remember when you and Tyler broke up and you showed up at my place with 3 pints of ice cream? She laughed. You said you were never dating a guy with a motorcycle again because helmet hair was killing your vibe. The table went silent. Every eye turned to me, then to Jason, whose face had turned to stone. I could feel the blood rushing to my cheeks as I tried to laugh it off. Amanda's mixing me up with someone else, I said weakly, but the damage was done. Jason stood up, threw some cash on the table for his meal, and walked out without a word. I was left sitting there, 8 months pregnant, knowing my entire world was about to collapse. And finally, I couldn't blame anyone but myself. I made excuses to our friends and followed him home, driving myself, even though he'd insisted on separate cars for my comfort. When I got there, Jason was sitting in the dark living room, so still he could have been a statue. Why? Was all he said when I turned on the light. Why lie about something so basic and then keep lying when I gave you multiple chances to tell the truth? I tried to explain. It wasn't a serious relationship. It was so long ago, I didn't think it mattered. But even to my own ears, the excuses sounded pathetic. For the first time, I realized this wasn't about Tyler at all. It was about trust, about the fact that I could look my husband in the eye repeatedly and lie without hesitation. "I'm sorry," I finally said, tears streaming down my face. "I don't know why I lied. I just didn't want you to be weird about Tyler and me being friends." Jason shook his head slowly. "Do you really think I'm that insecure? That I'd forbid you from being friends with an ex from years ago? What kind of controlling jerk do you think I am?" I didn't have an answer. And that's when it hit me. I'd created this entire disaster based on assumptions about how he'd react without giving him the chance to actually react. I decided his feelings for him. "The problem isn't that Tyler is your ex," Jason continued, his voice eerily calm. "It's that you invited someone you were intimate with into our home, introduced him to me as just a friend, and then lied to my face about it repeatedly, even when you saw how much it was bothering me." He stood up then, looking down at me with eyes that held no warmth. "I can't trust anything you say anymore, and I can't be with someone I don't trust." That night, he moved all his things into the guest room. We were still living in the same house, but everything had changed. What scared me most wasn't sleeping alone. It was realizing that in trying to avoid making a big deal out of nothing, I'd turned nothing into something that was destroying my marriage. And I was 8 months pregnant with nowhere to go. My attempt at reconciliation over the next few weeks was pitiful at best. I tried cooking his favorite meals, which he'd eat in his room. I tried initiating conversations about the baby, which he'd participate in politely before excusing himself. I even tried to seduce him one night, waddling into his room in lingerie that barely fit over my huge belly, only to have him gently but firmly lead me back to my bedroom. I called his mother, thinking she'd take my side. She'd always loved me, but even she was distant on the phone. Apparently, Jason had told his family everything. "Honesty is very important to our family, Megan," she said. "Jason grew up watching his father lie to his mother until it destroyed them. You knew that." And she was right. I did know that. Jason had told me about his dad's affairs, about how each one started with small lies that snowballed until his mom found out the truth from someone else, how she'd given his dad multiple chances to come clean, but he never did until confronted with evidence, how they'd finally divorced when Jason was 15, and how he'd promised himself he'd never put up with dishonesty in his own relationships. I'd known all this, and I'd still lied to him over something that wouldn't have even been an issue if I'd just been honest from the start. At my 38-week appointment, the doctor said I was starting to dilate. "Baby could come any day now," she said cheerfully, unaware of the tension between Jason and me. He'd come to the appointment, sat beside me, held my hand during the uncomfortable exam. Every bit the supportive partner on the surface, but his eyes never met mine, and his hand was limp in my grip. In the car afterward, I broke down. "Please don't leave me," I sobbed. "Please, Jason. I'm about to have your baby. I made a mistake, but it was one stupid lie. You're throwing away our family over nothing." He pulled the car over and turned to look at me, really look at me, for the first time in weeks. "It wasn't nothing, Megan. And it wasn't one lie. It was dozens. Every time you had the chance to tell the truth and chose not to. Every day you watched our relationship fall apart and still said nothing." He sighed, suddenly looking exhausted. "I'll be there for the birth. I'll be there for our child always. But us, I don't know if there's anything left to save." I went into labor 3 days later, 2 weeks early. Everything happened so fast. My water broke at 2 a.m. Contractions came hard and fast, and by the time we got to the hospital, I was already 7 centimeters dilated. Through the pain and fear, one thing kept me going. Jason was there, holding my hand, coaching me through each contraction. For those few hours, it almost felt like nothing had changed between us. Our daughter Riley was born at 8:17 a.m., healthy and perfect, with a head full of dark hair, just like her dad's. When they placed her on my chest, I looked up at Jason with tears of joy, thinking, surely this miracle we'd created would heal everything. The look of pure love on his face gave me hope, until I realized that love was directed entirely at our daughter. When his eyes met mine, they were kind but distant, like a friend congratulating another friend. The next few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights, diaper changes, and breastfeeding struggles. Jason took paternity leave and stayed in the guest room, coming whenever Riley cried, changing diapers, doing laundry, cooking meals. He was the perfect father and co-parent, just not my husband anymore. One night when Riley was about a month old, I found Jason sitting in the nursery rocking chair just watching her sleep. "She's so perfect," I whispered, leaning against the door frame. He nodded without looking up. "She is." "We made something amazing together," I said, trying to build a bridge. "Doesn't that count for anything?" Jason finally looked at me, his eyes sad. "It counts for everything, Megan. That's why I'm still here. That's why I'll always be in her life." He paused. "But I've been talking to a lawyer. We need to figure out custody arrangements." The word custody hit me like a physical blow. This was really happening. He was really leaving me. "You're ending our marriage over one lie," I said, my voice rising despite trying to stay quiet for the baby. "No," he said simply. "I'm ending it over what that lie revealed about us. About you." He stood up carefully, placing a kiss on Riley's forehead before walking past me. "I'll always care about you as Riley's mother, but I don't trust you anymore, and I can't build a life with someone I can't trust." By the time Riley was 6 months old, our divorce was finalized. Jason bought a small house 10 minutes away to make co-parenting easier. We established a schedule. Riley would live primarily with me since I was breastfeeding, but Jason would have her 3 days a week once I weaned her. I thought I'd feel relieved once everything was settled, but instead, I felt increasingly hollow as I watched my daughter bond with her father during his visits, knowing he went home to an empty house because of my stupid lie. My family sympathized with me at first, but gradually as the whole story came out, even they began to question my choices. "You know, honey," my mom said during one visit, "sometimes it's not about how big the lie is, but what it says about your respect for your partner." Even Amanda, who'd accidentally exposed my lie, grew distant. "I always thought you'd tell him eventually," she admitted over coffee one day. "I never would have said anything if I'd known you were still hiding it. That's why I was so shocked when everyone at the table went quiet." Slowly, my support system dwindled. People took sides, and most didn't take mine. My identity as half of a loving couple, as part of a perfect family, was stripped away. The final blow came 8 months after our divorce. I was at the grocery store with Riley when I saw them. Jason, and a woman I didn't recognize, laughing by the produce section. He was holding a basket and she was selecting avocados, testing each one with expert fingers. The domesticity of it made my stomach churn. Jason spotted me and waved, walking over with this woman in tow. "Megan, this is Claire." "Claire, this is Megan, Riley's mom." Just Riley's mom, not my ex-wife. Like our marriage had been erased completely. Claire smiled warmly and bent down to coo at Riley, who immediately gave her a gummy grin. "Oh, she's even more beautiful in person." Jason's photos don't do her justice. They'd been together long enough for him to show her photos of our daughter, long enough for her to care about meeting his child. I made small talk on autopilot, noticing how Jason looked at this woman with complete openness, no wariness in his eyes. He trusted her in a way he'd never trust me again. Later that night, after putting Riley to bed, I scrolled through social media and found Claire's profile. She was a physical therapist, pretty in an understated way, with kind eyes and a genuine smile. Her profile showed a woman who volunteered at animal shelters, ran half marathons, and apparently made Jason happier than I'd seen him in over a year. As I closed my laptop, the truth I'd been avoiding finally sank in. I'd lost everything: my husband, many of my friends, my vision for my future, not because of one small lie, but because I'd valued protecting my pride over honesty and respect for the person I claimed to love. Now, I'm living in a small apartment with Riley, working extra shifts to make ends meet. While Jason thrives, he's getting promoted at work, he's in a healthy relationship with someone who apparently understands the value of honesty. He's the fun parent who takes Riley to the zoo in the park, while I'm the stressed one worrying about bills and daycare. Sometimes I tell myself it's not fair, that everyone tells little white lies, and I just got caught, that Jason overreacted. But deep down, I know that's not true. It wasn't the size of the lie. It was the casualness with which I told it over and over, watching him suffer and still choosing deception over truth. I don't know what my future holds. Dating as a single mom is hard, especially when the story of why you're single makes you look bad. I've tried therapy, tried to understand why I chose to lie when telling the truth would have been so much easier. The therapist says I have issues with vulnerability and control, that I lied to manage Jason's reaction rather than risking his authentic response. Maybe she's right, but understanding why I did it doesn't change the outcome. I'm still alone, watching the life I wanted slip further away with each passing day. If I could go back to that first moment when Jason asked about Tyler, I'd tell the truth. Yes, we dated briefly years ago, but it wasn't serious and we're just friends now. 14 simple words that could have saved my marriage, my family, and my happiness. Instead, I'm left with regrets and a hard earned lesson. Sometimes the smallest lies cause the biggest damage, not because of what they hide, but because of what they reveal about the person willing to tell them. If this confession kept you hooked, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We share powerful true stories every day that explore the complex realities of life.